Pauline Frost.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome this morning. Appreciate everyone coming online this morning. We have online Deb Foxcroft, who is the co-chair of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. I am Pauline Frost. I am the chief of Vuntut Gwitchin First Nation in North Yukon. I'm here to help facilitate, moderate today's discussions. And to begin, I'd like to turn over to Deb Foxcroft to lead us into the beginning, doing the opening welcome and commencing with the opening prayer. So I'll turn over to you, Deb, please. Okay, thank you, everyone. I apologize, Deb may have some difficulties logging in, so I will just start the discussion this morning until Deb can launch in when she's ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry. I don't know what happened and my picture's not coming up either. So I just wanted to say good morning. Deb Foxcroft. I am a commissioner from BC. I'm coming from the Sishot unceded territory here on Vancouver Island. Just wanted to say I'm also one of the co-chairs for the commission, and I just want to welcome you all for joining us today on this very important meeting that we're going to be updating you on the wonderful work that the commission has done to date. And I just wanted to say I'm really happy that you all could join us, the leaders, the caregivers, matriarchs, the elders, whoever's online. We really appreciate you being on here. So before we want to get started in a good way, so I'm going to be asking Judy Red Hummingbird Wilson, our knowledge keeper for Our Children Our Way, and she'll be opening us in a good way with the prayer. So I just want to pass that over to you, Judy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Frost, and thank you, Deb, for welcoming us in, and also all of the ones joining us from the 4 directions across our so-called Canada. And I will open up with a prayer. I wanted to share a poem prayer from about Yes, I Am, walking with the grandmothers. It's something I was working on, and I think of from time to time because I was raised by my grandmother, and also my mother is Elder Minnie Knorris, and my father's Grand Chief Joe Manuel, both from the unceded territory of Squamish. Honoring the sacred acknowledges our interconnectedness to our earthly realm and the universe. Honoring the earth recognizes we are dependent on Mother Earth for our existence and well-being. Honoring the elders is the cycle of life we fulfill and sharing of the life's lessons. In walking with our grandmothers, we honor all whom we share the earth, including the seen and unseen, the water beings, the trees, the plants, the rocks, all of our people, and the 4 legs, 2 legs, winged ones, the swimmers, the crawlers, and all of creation. And we are thankful for our grandmothers who taught us to walk in balance and beauty with all of creation and the sacred. And in meaning that, we thank our Telkukbi, our creator, for all that he provides us each and every day, for the cycle of life in our grandmothers and our grandfathers, where they represent that balance and wisdom throughout our years and important lessons and learning they share with us. So no matter where we are, we can connect with Mother Earth and we can connect with the teachings that they've shared with us. And we pray for the ones that are impacted by the wildfires and the flooding and the extreme weather conditions and the earthquakes as well, and the war-torn conflict areas. And we pray for the ones that are underserved, underrepresented, and underhoused, that they get the support and resources, especially the mental health and addictions, and anyone who lost loved ones this last while. And we pray for them, for the comfort that they can have to help them along in life, as our ancestors did. They survived, and we are doing that now for our children and our families, especially. So why we're gathered here across Turtle Island for Cook's Jam, Cook's Jam, Cook's Jam, Cook's Jam. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Again, I just wanted to thank her, Judy, for her wise words and opening us up in a good way. So I wanted to let's start our agenda with some open remarks from an introduction of our chair, Pauline Frost, and just welcome everyone to today. So I will pass it over to our esteemed chair and Chief Frost to introduce herself to. Thank you.
My name is Pauline Frost. I am the Chief of Vuntut Gwitchin First Nation, and I reside on the traditional territory of Vuntut Gwitchin, North Yukon. We are, just for reference point, the only isolated community in the Yukon significantly impacted by a lot of pressures, climate crises being one. Access to appropriate services is a second one. We speak often about safe drinking water and accommodations, and what does that all mean when it comes to the standing together for a better future for our children. So with my role, I currently chair the National Children's Chiefs Commission, as appointed in January of this year by the Commissioners, essentially to lead conversation and discussions when it comes to the Human Rights Tribunal outcomes, when it comes to looking at reform. What does that mean, and how do we as commissioners participate in this process? And this morning we'll really have delve into our existence and how did we come to be, and we'll go back in time as well and talk a little bit about history and how this all evolved. I think it's really essential and critical that we come to a common place of understanding, because there's significant lots of emotions involved when it comes to our children. So I wanted to just start on that note, knowing that when we received the whole comprehensive package last summer, we had but 2 weeks to respond or to reply, endorsement or not endorsement. If there were to be amendments, what would that look like in preparation for the Special Chiefs Assembly? Certainly didn't give adequate time to do the comprehensive review, and I would certainly not qualify that as consultation and engagement in good faith from the Crown. So we have considered and contemplated all of that. So the agenda and the objective today is allowing an opportunity for open dialogue. There'll be question period. There'll be opportunities to respond to some critical questions. We have an agenda. We're going to walk through the agenda and try to stick to the timeline. I'm going to ask you all, if you can, note as we're going, when you do have questions, put it in the Dropbox or the chat box. And we have Michelle Morningstar Doherty online, who will help to moderate. I just want to thank the team that has gotten us here today. Without you, we would not have been as well prepared. I will do my very best. I am no expert, I must say. I have been involved for a while now on this particular file. I have some experience as a politician, but I always say, first and foremost, I'm a child of the ancestors of Vuntut Gwitchin, and that's my first priority, is ensuring that I represent my people well with dignity, honor, and pride, and ultimately looking out for the best interest of our most important resource, which is our children. We had recently the Prime Minister's Summit, and you'll note in that summit, we raised and highlighted the significant importance of this particular file when we speak about national initiatives like Bill C-5 or nation building. Well, you can't build nations without considering children and what does this look like 7 generations from now, should we not correct the inequities that we're seeing. And so I wanted to, take an opportunity to essentially walk through that and then just look at an introduction of the agenda and have us walk through the agenda. So at this time, we have the agenda in front of us on the screen. So I'm just going to get us to pay attention to and scroll through the agenda so we know, and you start thinking about, the breakout sessions and the overview and what are you going, what are the questions and next steps, and, having opportunities to respond to questions. We have some technical team online that have been actively involved in this file, very involved, and Dr. Cindy Blackstock has been instrumental in briefing us up and giving us really a lot of the background detailed information with respect to the early years and how we evolved to where we are today. Just want to acknowledge the commissioners that are online. Welcome all, and of course the chiefs from across the country and your technical staff. And so we will now look at the agenda. So the background, I guess first off, we're going to do an introduction of the chiefs at the table, commissioners, and then we'll go through the background of the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal case and how we are landed where we are today. We'll give an overview of the National Children's Chiefs Commission and the work we've conducted to date. I have to say we've in a few short months, moved mountains to get here to essentially try to prepare ourselves for, the new cabinet and respond appropriately to any triggers that might come with respect to renewal. We'll have a break at 11:15, and then we will go on after 11:15 to, where are we now? And so we'll talk about what we've done, and then we'll talk a bit about where do we go from here. The commissioners will have an opportunity to do a bit of a reflection because I'm not the only one, but there are many of us from across the country. There's 11, in fact, commissioners being appointed by the regions, and I represent the Yukon region. And we essentially were hoping to have this, as a Zoom conversation and discussion, but we've created a webinar just given the interest. And I want to just acknowledge all of you for your interest in learning more about this particular, file and the significance it has on Canada. And if you have any difficulties, we have teams online. Just let us know what challenges you're having, and we'll try to get you linked back in. You would have received all the documents for this morning. Webinar would have been sent out from the team. And so I will now ask I guess the commissioners online and those that are present, if you are comfortable with this format that we've laid out. And can everyone hear me okay, first and foremost? All's good? Okay, great. So with regards to the first question is how did we get here, and who are we? The First Nations and Assembly voted on a motion or resolution that was presented to the Special Chiefs and Assembly. Ultimately, the intention of the resolutions and motions that were put to the floor for discussion and debate was to look at the final settlement agreement that you would have seen last July, the comprehensive document from Canada, which dated back, by the way, early years to 2006, and then it went on and in terms of the first rejection of the agreement and then moving on to the final submission that we are seeing now. In that process, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from Canada with regards to how services were provided to our children. And I'm gonna, give you a bit of a highlight on myself. Like I sat at the federal table as a minister, a regional minister on health and social services, family, children services. So I sat there for 5 years, and so I got to see firsthand really how the federal government worked its magic, or not magic, but how it worked, with respect to the political realm on services delivered to Indigenous nations across the country, predominantly those that live on reserves. We are settled in the Yukon, so we have 11 self-governing First Nations, 4 that are not. So we try to look at the diversity that's before us and ensure that we don't ever end up in a situation that we, put further barriers up for ourselves, with respect to who belongs to AFN, who doesn't belong to AFN, whether you're a treaty numbered nation or a modern treaty group. The objective is that we have to ensure that there's consistent, transparent, respectful dialogue going forward. So the Assembly, the First Nations and Assembly rejected overwhelmingly the final settlement agreement, one, because it did not genuinely eliminate and remove discriminatory practices of Canada, extremely over bureaucratic, and that it was governed by a corporate regime of Canada and not indigenized enough that it took into consideration the cultural significant needs of our regions, all of us being unique in our own way, the unique circumstances of each region. So the draft family service agreement was seen as an extension of a large burdensome regime. It was inconsistent with the best interest of children. Funding commitments in the draft was subject to annual parliamentary appropriation and any other budgetary decisions, although they gave on the surface, they indicated that they were $47.8 billion for a national reform. There was no room for discussion around how this would look on a regional basis, given our unique circumstances in each one of our regions. That said, one of the elements of that agreement also spoke about on reserve and never really reflected off reserve. So in that vein, the children that resided outside a community were not contemplated in this national reform. So we went at this point, recognizing in that 2-week period, the 2-week window that we were given to analyze, realizing there were some discrepancies. We had to go back to the Chiefs and Assembly and presented some alternative options. The options that you've seen is the resolutions that were presented to the Chiefs and Assembly, resolutions specifically 60 and 61, and that directed AFN Executive to establish a National Children's Chiefs Commission. And establishing a National Children's Chiefs Commission, the governance and transparency of the long-term reform agreements, and not to forget that our intention when we speak about reform of family, children services agreements and programs, Jordan's principle is, we're dealing with the same children, the same families across the country. You cannot differentiate and say, oh, we're dealing with these things separately. It has to be dealt with in one agreement that essentially, collects all of the disparities and discrepancies that we're seeing. So the resolutions directed the Assembly of First Nations Executive Committee to adopt the following approach to long-term reform, and that was to establish a National Children's Chiefs Commission with representation appointed by every region, including regions not represented by AFN, and that will work openly and transparently to provide strategic direction and oversight to the long-term reform agreements and negotiations. So and then report back to the Chiefs and Assembly. So what that really means is that if we are triggering a review and a renegotiation with Canada on long-term reform, and the strategic direction and oversight with respect to renewed negotiations is directing this National Children's Chiefs Commission to take the lead, and that's essentially what this resolution is doing. We have been instructed also to establish a negotiating team to be ready for when Canada triggers triggers the renegotiation with regional representation and new legal team. We have a new legal team as well. That will be responsible for carrying out the negotiations of the agreement, providing direction to the commission. So I'm just going to bring us briefly back to the Assembly of First Nations and their charter, and what the charter says. So the chiefs in Assembly highlights and passes resolutions that instructs the Executive Committee of the Assembly of First Nations to follow through on certain deliverables. And in the Constitution, so you refer to the Assembly of First Nations Constitution, it directs and recognizes that the instruments to advance aspirations of First Nations and establishing ways in which to fulfill those obligations and granting authority essentially to the First Nations, establishing chiefs committees from time to time that will lead and take action on subject matters. So there's elements of their constitution that are their charter that directs and gives the window for this opportunity to evolve. The Chiefs Committee must draft terms of reference is one of the highlights in their charter. So the National Children's Chiefs Commission has drafted its terms of reference that is going to govern how we conduct ourselves. I'm just going to ask us to move on to the next slide. So the National Children's Chiefs Commission conducted its cross-Canada engagement. We've met with the regional chiefs from across the country. We've met with them at the Chiefs in Assembly. We followed through with various national and regional chiefs. And just want to acknowledge that we have significant support of the executive of AFN with the regional chiefs, and you'll see the appointments of all these commissioners from across the country that have participated very actively in the National Children's Chiefs Commission. We've had 2 in-person meetings. The 2 in-person meetings we've had in January, we structured ourselves and we set some priorities going forward on how we are going to, establish a formal commission that would meet the test of time and, of course, meet the test of Canada scrutiny with respect to the structure that they are accustomed to, which means that we obviously needed to solidify ourselves by formalizing the commission, and we have an amazing team behind the scenes doing this work, a technical team. And we've also just met recently with the objective of having a meeting in, actually lining up for the Chiefs in Assembly in September. So all of this is to allow us to converse and communicate back and forth. So what's really important for us at this point in time is highlighting the individuals in each one of your regions. The commissioners and the chiefs in your regions have been reaching out to their constituency group or their nation groups and conveying messages. I know some have attended your regional annual general meetings and presented the information. If for some reason, as we're moving along, that you're not feeling this suffices, please reach out to your regional rep or reach out to Tracy Levin for Our Children Our Way. We will get you the information that you need and provide some clarification. So we'll move on to the next slide. As we have, Michelle has a team that's collecting questions as well as we move along. So I'm going to now maybe move us on. So the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, the Caring Society and AFN versus Canada, the expert on this particular file is Cindy Blackstock. So she has actively involved in the Human Rights Tribunal, reviewing Canada's discriminatory practices dating back to 2016 when the decision was made or rendered down. Essentially, Canada knew what they were doing, but they kept doing it. And and that has continued on. It's almost 10 years of non-compliance. despite the fact that the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal highlighted very clearly that Canada's bureaucracy and its program delivery services was discriminatory, and that not all children were treated equal. Not all children were given the services and supports that they needed. You know, I'll just reflect that I'm often reminded that you know, our caring society and Jordan River Anderson triggered the Jordan principle concept and or process. While there are many children like him still across the country that is not being adequately supported, and we wanted to look at the 30 non-compliance orders, procedural orders that the Human Rights Tribunal and the federal court has struck as things that need to be followed. At this point, what we know, essentially, the Human Rights Tribunal still has jurisdictional rights and retains rights over the non-compliance orders, and they're, you know, ensuring, or we are through this process trying to ensure that Canada is no longer implementing its regime from 2016 still today in almost 2026 at the end of this fiscal year, and we're still seeing this. So what do we do and you know, where do we go from here? We know for a fact that the Canadian Human Rights Tribunals are binding because they came out of the tribunal. I know that was a long and arduous process to get there. And so I think we all understand that. We understand the agreements and we understand where we are. And the systemic racism and the complaints that we've received is obviously continuing. And so we've given the knowledge keepers on the table, around the table right now. The knowledge keepers are and the negotiating team. We have to find a way to make amends. We have to find a way to start drafting and following the direction that is based on the true rights holders of this country, the true rights holders being Indigenous people. You know, I think we've often say, no one speaks for me without me, no one acts for me without me, and UNDRIP's pretty clear. It says that, you know, essentially don't do anything without prior and informed consent, and, you know, they're implementing processes and policies and discriminatory practices. So when we talk about Aboriginal rights and entitlement, we talk about human rights at the same time. And the practices that we've seen it's still there. And, you know, I see some jurisdictions have 11,000 children in care. And how is that? How is that at this day and age? And why is it that the agencies, as they've been defined in the outcomes of the reform document, highlighted in most regions as the government? Like, we cannot continue to, you know, identify agencies as the government as a service delivery model. That doesn't work. We have to do that ourselves. So I think this is very important. And we'll now look at the next phase of our conversation here this morning. I'll see if maybe quickly if I know that we have Cindy Blackstock online and other commissioners. We will have some open dialogue with our commissioners after this presentation, and I wanted to just see quickly if there was any other thoughts or comments on this the particulars of the opening, and something that I may have missed that others can pick up on. So I'll just open up very quickly and shortly for quick feedback and input from the other commissioners.
Excuse me, Chief Pauline.
Yes.
We have a few questions, and I'm wondering if I may let you know now, or would you like me to save these up for a little bit later?
Okay, so let's get I would say, first, I'll just see if the commissioners have any opening thoughts or comments, and then we'll open up to the questions, and then we'll move on to the next section of our webinar, if
Okay.
that's okay with everyone.
Thank you.
So I'll
That's-
just open up again. Do we have any of the commissioners that have any opening thoughts or comments you'd like to offer at this point? I believe we were intending to do a quick opening with the commissioners as well, just giving you an opportunity to introduce yourselves.
Wade Huhuidip, Cookbeat Helen Henderson, West. Hello, everyone. My name is Chief Helen Henderson, and I am the appointed commissioner for the BC region. And I'm happy to be connecting with all of you today. If we're at the point in the presentation where we're sharing a bit about ourselves, for sure. I'm Cookbeat of Gwitchin First Nation, have been chief for 6 years now. I'm in my second term. Previous to that, I worked in our treaty department, and my portfolio was child and family, readying the chapter for sure. And on a personal note, I have 9 children. 6 of them are my late sister's children, whom I assumed the care of when she joined the ancestors. And my heart and soul is in the work for Vuntut Gwitchin, and I want to offer my gratitude to Cookbeat Judy for the opening prayer. It's always healing to enter a space where we're able to connect with our ancestors and seek guidance for the heavy lifts, certainly that we have to do working in this process. So I'm happy to support the presentation today, and I understand Chief Frost that I'll be presenting a slide later on. So again, thank you to the entire NCCC team for all the technical work. It's been very busy, and to the Our Children Our Way Secretariat as well, and all of our own technicians that we have working in the background, all off the sides of our desks. So Cookshim.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. We'll now move on to what is long-term reform with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. Thinking, I guess we kind of thinking about not about ending and stopping a process, like, but we want to know how do we get there to that place, because we know that right now with the reform from last October and the Chiefs and Assembly, the nations across the country didn't really have an opportunity to amend or draft or provide input around the reform other than through the Chiefs and Assembly and presenting some options to reevaluate and reevaluate essentially and get back to the drawing board. And that, I think, was the gist of ending cannabis discrimination in family and children's services and Jordan's principle, because how do we stop it from happening again? It's still happening, so we need to end it, and we need to think about a new strategy. And then we also need to, think about how do we move forward from here, because we haven't made a whole lot of progress with Canada, other than an agreement that has been established with Kuinan out of Ontario. Just want to acknowledge that we have always supported their process, and acknowledge the success that they've evolved into with regards to family children services and the outcomes they were looking for. But that's not the outcome that other nations see as fitting for them. So where is that opportunity? What does this mean for us with respect to long-term reform? So these are questions you want to ask yourself ourselves, and how do we end and stop discrimination? Really looking at Canada, to cease harming our children and eliminating systemic discrimination and how it delivers essential programs and services. I think there's a specific number that was put on the table originally, and that number was something like, $20,000 for, a certain, in total, it was 20 and 20, so $40,000 assigned for a child. Is that sufficient, is the question. And is the money sufficient? Well, we can't really focus on the money that's there. We just focus on what does reform look like? How do we renegotiate terms and conditions to meet our unique circumstances, and then solidifying, because you're going to have to go in on an annual basis to renegotiate access. And that's early on. I raised that it's all based on parliamentary privileges and cabinet submissions. So that is where kind of pushed us up to the end of the opening. And I want to just now quickly turn us, if we can, to collect the questions, and we'll try to respond to the questions. There are a number of individuals online that can help respond to the questions. And so as commissioners and technical team mostly to help respond to the questions. So I'd like to just maybe think about that for a second, and let's bring us to maybe some questions. We are pushing on to 11:15 right now on my time. And if that's okay with everyone, keep in mind that I've never ran a webinar in my life, but I'm doing my best to follow and track. I chair the meetings, and so this is all a new process for me. So I beg your patience as I navigate here. So I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that you have a number of questions. I believe there are 8 questions. If we can't respond to those questions right now in time, we will flag those questions and we will send back the responses to the questions, and we'll get it out to all those that are present today. So we'll just quickly look that way if we can, Michelle, if that's okay.
Thank you. Absolutely. And if you'd like to actually see the questions yourself, they're in the Q&A tab at the box at the bottom. So our first question from Anonymous was, what role, if any, has the Minister of Indigenous Services, Mandy Gull-Masti, played, and has she met with this group?
Okay, I can respond. Given Minister Gull-Masti's new role, we sent a letter of invitation. We've requested meetings with Minister Gull-Masti, and we're pretty clear on what we were looking for with respect to our political meeting and interaction with Minister Gull-Masti. We also sent the very same letter to the Prime Minister, asking for a meeting to have a discussion around this particular file. You'll note in the Prime Minister's campaign, one of his commitments was to look at reforming family children services. So we're trying to hold him to account on his commitment to the country, and we follow through the letters. We have yet to meet face to face. We anticipate that to happen shortly. We will keep the pressure on. And I think that is a good segue to the commissioners and the chiefs across the country. We did raise it at we did raise this file and the interest of this at the Prime Minister's Summit, to say, you're not going to build Canada on the backs of our children. So let's talk about, reforming the family children services and get back to the negotiating table. We have not met favorably with Canada yet. So to your question and your point, no, we have not received a response back to say, yes, we will meet, other than when I spoke with Minister Gull-Masti at the summit, was to say, look, I'm new, my staff are new. I know I told her that we sent a letter of invitation for a meeting. She indicated to us that we must resend the letter because it may have gotten lost in the system somewhere. So we just recently sent that letter off again, and that was not so long ago, just over a week ago.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next couple of questions is from Warner Adam, who is, excuse me, he also has a suggestion to make, but we'll start with the questions. Has the AFN administration provided supports as per the chief's resolution? And the second question is, has ISC provided funding for the operations for the commission?
Thank you. So with response to AFN, up to this point, the National Children's Chiefs Commission have not, we have not received a whole lot of support from AFN. We just recently, the Regional Chief Joanna Bernard was appointed as the lead for the executive, and we really appreciate her being at our meetings. And her interest and her vision as well to, seek reform and push Canada to eliminate this discriminatory practices. So she's been at our table, and we really value and appreciate her presence because she's very passionate about this as well. But with respect to receiving funds, we put forward to Canada in the spring a work plan and a budget, but we have not received any funding. And we have not received any funding, and to date, we've received a small amount of money from Assembly First Nations. They received some funds with regards to some consultation work, and I believe it was $130,000, which doesn't cover a whole lot because we've been in active mode for quite a number of months. So everyone that is on the line, everyone that has participated, all of our legal team, our negotiating team, our technical team, our comms team, our chiefs, our commissioners are all doing this work essentially free of charge. We are doing this work until we can get some funding from Canada. We're looking to the Assembly First Nations to help us get that, because keep in mind, we are not separate from Assembly First Nations. We derive from the Assembly First Nations and the chiefs in Assembly. Therefore, there never should be a discrepancy between what NCCC is doing and what AFN is doing. We have to get the support required from the Assembly First Nations to advance this in Canada, advance it with one voice, advance it with one perspective and one vision, and that's to end and stop the discriminatory practices. And we can't get there. And the response we heard back from Canada was, we are confused. What is NCCC doing, and what is AFN doing? And essentially get your ducks in order and then come talk to us. And that's what we're essentially trying to do with the Assembly of First Nations, is through the appointment of Regional Chief Bernard and myself, we are hoping that we can present the findings and the format up to this point to the chiefs and assembly, so that we can advance collectively, unilaterally with Canada. And so I look forward to that. And that's because the Chiefs Assembly was delayed due to the wildfires, and just want to acknowledge the communities in Winnipeg that has been impacted significantly by climate change and of course wildfires, and the delays kind of brought us to this point where we're sharing information, and then we will bring it back to the chiefs in assembly, and we'll all be there to respond in time and face to face. It's always difficult when you have these webinars or national conferences and meetings online. It's not always easy, with time is limited. So I wanted to just note that we are moving, and we are pushing, and we have Joanna Bernard beside us now. We have a number of the regional chiefs that are absolutely in support, and of course there are others that want to move on their own, or maybe don't want to be a part of this process. But those that are here working with us, we value and appreciate you, so thank you for that. We'll move on to the next question, please.
Thank you. I've actually got Warner Adam from Carrier-Secani. Family Services. He would like to make a very short comment, 2 minutes at the very most. And what we'll be doing after that is we'll continue with our slide presentation and we'll
Yep.
take some more questions after that. So are you able to speak, Warner?
Testing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
perfect. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to provide some advice with respect to moving forward. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Carriers Academy Family Services and have been working in this field for 35 years. But 35 years ago, I've worked with elders from my community who have worked 30 years to try and change the system. So in total, it's 65 years. And have been involved in the national scene for some time, but recently Mary TG has appointed Mary TG to represent our views nationally. And speaking of Mary, keep her in your prayers as she recently lost her sister to cancer. I think it was on Monday or Sunday. I'm a member of the Jordan's Operation Committee, and it's a national committee sitting with AFN and Indigenous Services Canada, and I've been very transparent and open about my concerns with respect to the structures that has been developed both by AFN and IS, because there are so many structures that are mandated to reform, to provide advice on Jordan's principal operations and political committees, and we're not very collected. So I would suggest that we really push for an environmental scan of all committees associated with children and families, including their mandates, their reporting structures, their accountability, and their transparency. In terms of the 47 billion, I was at the assembly when it was rejected, and I think we need to be very cautious as to how we use our language. In my opinion, the 47 billion was not rejected. It's a good start to move forward. It was the structure and processes that the chiefs did not like because it wasn't transparent and open to everybody. So and looking at the history, what I would suggest is trying to develop a communication strategy so that we educate the public on the landscape of how the relationship with ISK has turned out on this file, because I think many people do not know what's going on, and they think that we've just outrightly rejected the first 7 billion without context. To me, I think it's really important that we gain the support of the public, and I think we need a good communication strategy to ensure that we demonstrate the current state of our children, which is deplorable. At this day and age, we do not have the resources to build the infrastructure and capacity in our communities to keep children at home. Just my advice, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you, the chiefs, to step up and ensure that discrimination ends. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for that. I certainly be mindful going forward. I no intentions to misrepresent. I think it's pretty clear, and with respect to the conversation and the discussion around what actually was involved, what was contained in those recommendations that we did not agree with. It wasn't the money. It was it was really about trying to solidify going forward a solid pathway. So I thank you for that clarification and your recommendations. All the feedback is important. I certainly want to make sure that we do things better, and communication is an essential piece of that. So must see for that. We are now moving on to I believe we're moving on to the next slide. The rights holders are now directing and executing all aspects of reform. So if you see how does this move out, how does it ebb and flow back and forth across the country, there are many implications as we build and we evolve, and Canada ultimately is the defining factor or the complicating factor, right? And we speak about inherent jurisdiction, inherent right, and inherent right of our people, inherent right of our children. Some more captured in commitments in the Crown Indigenous relationships. Others are not, because we are defined in other regimes. So long-term reform around program and services and accountability is critical. It's a critical element to success. There are provincial territorial transfer agreements, and I'll just give a quick example of what that might look like. So when we say that, and as Canada devolves some authority and some finances down to its regional organizations, they put that into this what we refer to as the agency of government. Maybe we want to go so far as to say Indian agents that we've known from the pre-residential school era, but the agencies is still the government of Yukon in our region, the government of NWT in the NWT region, and likewise across the country. We do need to know what those agreements entail, and we do need to know that they don't just that we can't just move from one jurisdiction to the other. We have to look at our direct relationship with Canada, and it has to go nation to nation. And long-term reform and the agreement, and that's, I think, the challenge is AFN, the Caring Society, in the early years advancing this work, and from that we've morphed into this a new era, right? The new era is, look, this is not working for us. We want the regions and we want the country to be involved. Don't give us a window to say, hey, you have 2 weeks. Give us, a response to this comprehensive document. How do we effectively engage and delegate and design effective resources and models that will work for us? And those are, I think, just some of the implications that we're seeing. And I will I'm moving along trying to keep up here. I'll look to Michelle and Tracy that are online to help just kind of guide me through this process here with regards to the slides.
If you don't mind, Chief Frost, I certainly want to add a few comments to the slide.
Yes, please do.
Oh, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate the space to try to describe, the experience that we've had from the beginning. And it really is critical when we hear feedback, for sure, around environmental scans because of all the jurisdictional spaces that we occupy. And make no mistake, we occupy every jurisdictional space. So the work that's happening at the federal level has implications in every single space. And the NCCC has been mitigating what those conversations look like within these spaces under Bill C-92, certainly some implications. As an example, TFN occupies a few spaces where pursuing jurisdiction under C-92, absolutely. We've also been in the treaty realm for 30 plus years, pursuing jurisdiction under the treaty realm. We've also had agreements with our provincial systems here within the province of BC, direct relationships with MCFD offices within the province of BC. And we also have a delegated agency that, was stood up to directly serve our people with our own people. And then finally, we have inherent rights holders that do all of this without being a file, if you know what I mean. And no matter what conversation or no matter what decision is made at these higher levels, all of these spaces need to be mitigated so that our children don't fall through the cracks. And those are the implications of the CHRT discrimination pathways, if you follow the money, if you follow the funds and they start trickling out, you'll see that in all of these jurisdictional spaces. So it's very critical for all of us on Turtle Island to ensure that all the conversations that are happening at these levels by Canada are consistent, that the messaging is consistent for sure. So that's what I wanted to offer. Chief Pauline Frost, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. I will turn to oh yeah, my video is not wanting to work now. So I'll just speak. I'll turn to Cindy, Dr. Cindy Blackstock, if you can just provide us some comments with respect to the implications of the Canadian Human Rights file.
Thank you, Chief Frost, and thank you, Commissioners. And I just want to add my gratitude to the chorus who have already spoken to the work of the Commission, and just to say what a pleasure it's been to collaborate with you on this important work to discharge the resolutions, but also to achieve this stopping of Canada's discrimination and preventing it from happening again. I'm going to briefly speak about the case as it would relate to any national and potential regional agreements. The case is a legal case against Canada, where reform actually means Canada stopping its discrimination and preventing it from happening again. In legal orders, the tribunal has already spoken to say that the order for Canada to stop discriminating and prevent it from happening again in Child and Family and Jordan's Principle amounts to a permanent injunction against Canada. So that's important to know. It's also important to know that the legal proceedings are still ongoing, and that when it comes to a national agreement, there is direction from the chiefs to create a national agreement with regional variations to account for the unique circumstances in various regions. That work is being undertaken by the Commission and by other regional experts, and certainly the Carrying Societies turned our thoughts to that, and we look forward to bringing more of that material as it becomes more developed about what that may look like for feedback from leadership. There has been some conversation about whether other regions, like Ontario, should pursue a regional agreement. And of course, it is open to any First Nation and any group of First Nations and any region of First Nations to reach an agreement with Canada. However, when that agreement engages the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal orders, those orders could not be changed by an agreement. So if there's any changes to those orders, that has to be made at the tribunal. And the tribunal has been clear that evidence needs to be brought that it would satisfy the requirement to stop Canada's discrimination and prevent it from happening again. Canada has said they are not open to other regional agreements. Personally, I think it's unlikely that Canada would, or the tribunal would be able to conduct the case in an expedient manner if there were multiple regional agreements coming towards it. However, the primary thing is that there is an ability to create regional agreements and a national template. You know, and I think it's important for people to really think through what is it that you're trying to accomplish, because many of you have heard me in the past say that child welfare is not the major problem. It's no doubt that things in child welfare could be improved and ought to be improved. But the major problem driving our children into care is addictions fueled by the multi-generational trauma, poverty, poor housing, and domestic violence. And unless we deal with those issues, it doesn't matter how good we're doing with child welfare, we're just not going to succeed. And the good news for all of us is that at least for First Nations, many of those drivers, fixing those drivers, is directly within Canada's wheelhouse. What we don't want to see is for Canada to be using this sacred and vital responsibility of self-determination as a vehicle for it to offload the responsibility without dealing with those causes. And that would be my caution with any regional agreement. And there are so many sophisticated leadership and experts out there in First Nations Child and Family Services who've been providing it in community. And with their guidance and their support and working together, we can make sure that doesn't happen. So I hope that provides some clarity on that. And I'm certainly available. People can reach me through the Caring Society should you have any further questions for me. Thank you, Chief Frost.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I know that you certainly dedicated your life to this process, and optimism is important. So if we look at having confidence that we can get Canada back to the table, that's certainly entirely our objective. We hope to get Canada back to the table to renew negotiations as soon as possible and reach an agreement. So that we can essentially start looking at regional core needs of our very respective regions on what an agreement might look like. What went wrong? Well, lots went wrong, but we also know that we've learned a lot, right? And as we go forward, the Commissioner has looked at the agreements, and looked at mechanisms and recommendations going forward, and trying to come away with an adequate framework agreement that would trigger imminent and immediate negotiations. So we have the ground floor, and we can only move up from there. So I thank you for that. And let's turn now to the Commissioners for your input. If you have thoughts, comments you'd like to offer at this point, and then we will move us over to the next phase of our webinar. So just quickly to the Commissioners.
Good morning. This is Chief Bowden. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Commissioner for Saskatchewan. I'd like to say, first of all, thank you for the prayer this morning. I am going to speak a little bit about the inherent jurisdiction on C-92. So I am the Commissioner for Saskatchewan, and while that may seem, sorry, I'm trying to figure out my camera here. And while that may seem as though it is a strange place for myself as Commissioner to sit on the long-term reform, because it is different, as my First Nation is Cowes First Nation, and we are the first C-92 band that asserted our rights and took over jurisdiction, asserted our jurisdiction over our children. And right now we are also the first C-92 band or First Nation, sorry, the first C-92 First Nation that is negotiating the successor agreement. And we are currently on our 4th extension agreement before we get to our successor agreement. And how it relates to the long-term reform as well as the provincial federal transfer agreements is very, very much what we are hearing is that anything that is in the long-term reform and what the formula base is, that is what is going to be looked at as a formula base for C-92. Many of us that have moved towards the C-92 way, what we are looking at is that we do not have the capital buildings or the resources to build what our children and families need, as well as looking at the act and the way that we need to put our acts together as we assert the jurisdiction. Because once we do that, we then become completely responsible for our children. And while we have the CHRT, what in actuality will happen as we sign the successor agreement, if we do not have the amount of funding that our children require so that we do not recreate a broken system, in fact, our children and families, not only will we not have the ability to properly care for them, but also it goes back to liability. And the liability right now is with Canada in regards to providing the amounts of funding as well as the care. However, once we have a successor agreement, what that is that our children and families could actually potentially sue us because we are taking the liability on in caring for our children. So if we at this level are unable to secure a funding agreement that would properly care for our children and our families, our most vulnerable, then we ourselves as nations are becoming libelous, and we will not be able to look at CHRT, as well as Canada will say, you accepted this money, you took on this responsibility, you asserted your inherent jurisdiction. Therefore, we are wiping our hands off of this. So it does actually very much, C92 very much does relate to long-term reform and how we must all work together to ensure that we are not recreating broken systems and ensuring that we have not only adequate, but the funding that our children and our families deserve. So thank you very much for listening to me today.
Thank you so much. Just open up to others that may have a few comments before we, as you were going there, I'd like to just direct your attention to the QR code. We're asking you to please scan the QR code. There are some questions, and you'll see that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And we ask you to take a few minutes to answer these 3 specific questions now. And we'll take a few minutes to do that. I think we've designated 5 minutes. You know, I think as we continue the discussion, just I'm sure you have thought long and hard about the questions and you know, and the agreements, and you know, does your province or territory have an agreement to supply social services off reserve for off reserve members to similar to Ontario 1965 agreement or the Alberta ARA agreement? I think the second question is, if your nation is working on their own child family services law, has Canada tried to limit you to similar amounts of categories that were found in the rejected draft agreement? What are some specific areas of family children's, you know, child family services or Jordan principles where your regions would be looking for something slightly different from the rest of the regions? Let's ask you to leave your email address as well as you submit this so we can respond back. I'll maybe just give us 5 minutes to get to respond to these questions. While you're doing that, I'll just give you some unique circumstances. So when we look at, you know, as Chief Boydan talked about, C92, sorry, formula-based negotiations, you know, we look at price, we look at population, we look at remoteness factors, and we look at unique circumstances as a region in Yukon. And we try to, you know, capture that in setting data and setting a base to start from. We all know that Canada holds the Indian registry and the data, and you know, try to quantify needs based on what they have within their database. That isn't always adequate, right? So when we say price population, you know, we have to look at the gaps as well and the unique circumstances of our region. So the questions is kind of reflective around that. It's not only for those on reserve, it's what do we do for all of our citizens, that some of our children are maybe in care outside of traditional territory or in extended care agreements. What does that look like? So we'll just maybe, Michelle, I'll look to you. We'll take a few minutes, 5 minutes, just to respond to the questions, and then we'll come back. I see nods. That seems good. So I'll just keep track of the time. We're now at, according to my watch here, 11:18. So just flag for me when we need to come back in. So I'll just give you a few minutes to respond to the questions.
Okay, I'll just would you like to know the questions now that we've got through Q&A, Chief Pauline?
Yes, please.
Okay, that's it. Well, I'd just like to follow up with Warner Adam, who spoke just recently, and he said that he will be having lunch with Senator Greenwood and will ask for her support for the commission. So that's a very nice statement. Other questions are, this is from Patrick Stewart. He said, I noticed that the chiefs are elected. Is there any representation from hereditary chiefs? If not, can there be? Being from BC, we have a strong hereditary system in many nations. And another comment he has is, as a hereditary chief, I see this as a gap. So that was from Patrick Stewart.
I think I'll just quickly respond if I can. We have commissioners on that are not chiefs. So I think the flexibility in terms of regional representation is pretty broad and amazing. And certainly, you know, knowledge keepers with lived experience is really essential to our success, right? We can't move without their hereditary knowledge and the knowledge keepers, and you know, whatever value is added comes from that grassroots perspective. So absolutely, I think it's essential. In BC, we have reps and commissioners from the region, and you also have a regional chief, Terry Teegee, that has been actively involved and supportive of this process. So I would like to just propose that all commissioners, all chiefs are invited to all of the meetings. There's no differentiating or discrimination in that regard. So please, if you do want to participate, you know, feel free to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Pauline. Now, if it's okay, we'll give some time for people to actually answer the webinar questions, round one, and we'll save the rest of our questions to the end of the session, if that's okay with you. So
Yes.
I would say if you've answered the questions, terrific, or if you haven't, please do. And how about we come back in about 2 minutes?
That's great.
Okay, thank you. So it's been 2 minutes now, and I'm just wondering, Chief Pauline, if you are available, the next few slides are for you to speak to. So if we can update the slides, please. There we go.
Okay, thank you. So the question, what has NCCC done, right? And I'm just going to quickly recommend that you take some time, not now, but after the webinar, to read the progress report, which was issued out on August 1st, 2025. It'll give really, I think, a comprehensive overview of the commission and our progress report and exactly what have we done well, obviously the commission is established and the commissioners are appointed by the regions, the regional chiefs. Where one thing that I want to say, just based on the previous question, is that we are commissioned and we're appointed as commissioners by the regions and essentially represent the regions at all of our formal meetings. But we do open to dialogue with others when needed, like hereditary chiefs and knowledge keepers, and we bring them in should they choose to do that. And in establishing the National Children's Chiefs Commission, we took the language that, if you think back about the Assembly First Nations Resolution 60 and 61, it clearly states that the chiefs and assembly directed that the executive establish a National Children's Chiefs Commission, which is at arm's length from AFN, essentially to create a neutral body that can advance the interest of the nation to try to come to an agreement on what a national reform might look like, ultimately with the objective of regional agreements, not putting not ladder first, but looking at what does Canada put down as a mandate to negotiate. So we did that, and our regents appointed us, and we met in January. So a few short months, I have to say, I've been involved in a lot of files and a lot of national files, and it's, I think, first time I've ever seen anything move so quickly and so fast. It just tells you that the chiefs and the commissioners and the regions were ready to move, and taking into consideration, I highlighted earlier that under the Charter of AFN, there's specific tools and directives in there with regards to terms of reference and how things are, how chiefs committees are established. And not to say that the Children's Chiefs Commission is a chiefs committee as it's established under the normal process of AFN. This came out of the assembly. Let's keep that in mind. So in looking at how do we formalize ourselves, we all obviously want to get Canada back to the negotiating table. That's our ultimate priority. And developing a strategy going forward around our negotiation template, and aligning with the directions of the First Nations and our pulse, and then across the country is through the commissioners and through our regional reps. And so we often deliberate, or actually meet every 2 weeks consistently, unless something significant arises. So we met in January, and in the January meeting, we set the priorities going forward. And the priorities was to look at how do we communicate, who do we communicate with, and essentially we had to get the pulse of the nation, right? What did we learn from this? Who are the parties? Who are the stakeholders? And I have to say, right from the get-go, we've had lockstep with us is Dr. Cindy Blackstock educating us, helping us. And I remember walking into the Chiefs Assembly and how I felt as a chief. I've never in my life attended an Assembly First Nations Chiefs and Assembly meeting, and I was pretty daunting. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? I need to just get some language into this resolution that's going to represent the interest of the modern treaty groups. And I quickly realized that it was far broader than just my vision of what we should be doing with the Crown Indigenous relationship in Yukon. And so we've the composition right now of the commission is myself as a co-chair, Deb Foxcroft. Sorry, myself as the chair, Deb Foxcroft as the co-chair, as appointed by the collective of the commissioners. We have triggered right away through this process the terms of reference for the National Children's Chiefs Commission. That sets out our mandate, our membership, our roles, responsibilities, that provides strategic direction and oversight, as well as looking at our authority. Where does our authority come from? Our authority really comes from the resolutions of the Assembly addressing long-term reform. in that regard, we also think about how does First Nations make decisions? How are we making decisions? And including the guidance of youth and care, including the guidance of the hereditary chiefs or the elders and the lived experience. Ultimately, the accountability for all of us as leaders and as chiefs, we are accountable to our nations. We're accountable to each other, and but we are ultimately accountable to the chiefs and assembly, and we will be obligated to report back to the chiefs and assembly in a few short weeks and on our progress. What have we done? What have we accomplished? And looking at the progress report, the question was, can you share that? Well, absolutely, please do share it broadly. It highlights everything, and the report on the progress speaks about our relationship with AFN, and it also speaks about our relationship with each other and relationship with our regional reps through Assembly First Nation. So we defined the terms of reference for ourselves, and then we went ahead and we looked to doing an expression of interest across Canada to always remain transparent, never putting ourselves in a compromising position as a commissioner. So we went ahead publicly asking for an expression of interest for a negotiating team. We have 5 negotiators with very broad and deep experience representing First Nations across Canada. So we just want to acknowledge them. We have had also a team behind us in a technical team that has kept this machinery moving forward to this place of, setting in motion the tools that will solidify us and that will never be challenged or compromised in any way. We also have a legal team of Scott Smith and Liam Smith, no relation. One lives in Vancouver and one lives on the other end of the East Coast. And they essentially have the expertise with regards to family children services and the law as it applies, and actively involved in participating in all of our interactions to this point. We have secretarial support from Our Children Our Way, really great support in ensuring that we don't ever, the letters that go out, the correspondences that go out to us every week, and the correspondence that go beyond that. Just want to acknowledge some technical support as well, representation from 11 regions, including non-AFN nations. So not wanting to ever get us bogged down just because we come out of the Assembly of First Nations doesn't mean that we are Assembly of First Nations members. We make up representation of all across the country. Objectively is strategic action on negotiations, litigation related to the long-term reform, family children services, and Jordan Principle, obviously acting openly and transparently with the objective of full elimination of racial discrimination through Canada's practices and addressing structural inequities, and of course, ultimately adhering to the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal orders. And what we want to do through this process is overhaul the funding principles and looking at the structures and the methodologies and the policies, and instruct and provide support to all of our regions when we get to the point of negotiating regional approaches to implementing a national reform model. So that essentially is establishment of the commission. And we currently had a small pocket of funds available, but we put forward, as I said earlier, we had $130,000 that just covered some meetings and maybe some legal support. Other than that, we are all working pro bono. No one's getting paid, which is a testament to our commitment. In April of 2025, the Commission, NCCC, met with AFN. As we run through AFN, obviously we wanted to make sure that we submitted in collaboration with the Assembly of First Nations a work plan and a budget. Be happy to share that with you broadly. The work plan and $8.8 million budget was submitted to Canada. via AFN that would cover regional costs, including technical supports, secretariat supports and costs, and remuneration and costs for the negotiating team, and of course, legal fees. And, you know, I think that at this point, we far exceeded, I think, our expectations of the people that have committed to work voluntarily, and we are hoping that we can resolve this this matter with Canada when we do get to the table with them. Is we do need resources and to continue on this path, but it doesn't mean that we're going to stop. I don't. So NCC budget really should be covered under the Commission consultation protocol. Under the Human Rights Tribunal number 4. And Canada's ultimately trying to change this protocol. And that's the consultation protocol funding that we got was a funding that flowed over to Assembly First Nations. And I believe it was associated with the Expert Advisory Committee, and that they were not they were not a functional, I wouldn't say a functional committee. They were not being compensated, and Canada's hasn't been working with them in good faith. But Assembly First Nations received some funding around the protocol arrangements, and that's where we access resources. I could be, Tracy and others will help me if I'm off track here, but I do believe that was the intention. And we've moving to the next phase, covering our budget has not yet been secured, and you know we're looking obviously looking to Canada and Assembly First Nations, and hoping that we can get some commitment and moving this forward very quickly. So I do want to just acknowledge the contribution of everyone up to this point. Okay, so we've established then a payout of existing funds from the Secretariat, and, you know, moving on to the next phase or the next discussion. We have not seen anything yet. I don't even know if Assembly First Nations received any funding. We've not been informed, but it would be good to know that if they did receive funding from Canada to commence this work, then you know we want to hear about it. We want to participate in that process as well. So I'll stop there and we'll move on. Is the okay, so communicating with Canada. Question earlier is when early on in this dialogue, you know, have we heard from and have we communicated with Canada? Well, yes, we have multiple times. We've starting from the very first meeting that we had, and in January in Vancouver. Legal counsel requested to meet with Canada. We had proposed a draft commitment sort of before the election. After the election, we've triggered with the opposition leaders at the time conversation, trying to use all the tools that was available to us, and then meeting with Jagmeet Singh at the time, meeting with Pierre Poilievre, who's how politics works. You have to be prepared to speak with anyone, regardless of their political affiliation, and met with sent the letters and letters off to Canada. And in February, we sent a letter to Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister of ISK and Cernak, providing additional details about what it is we needed with respect to long-term reform. And then we went off on January 19th. We sent a letter, or sorry, March 19th, congratulatory letter to PM Carney. And then we talked in that letter, highlighted immediate actions that Canada can take to remedy its discriminatory practices and removal of discrimination, and trying to get that to him before the election, so he was aware. He knew who we were, and we wanted to just kind of highlight that for sure. And then we've also followed through on June 4th with a letter to Minister of ISK inviting her to meet as soon as possible. We sent another letter to ISK inviting her to meet with the Commission in person in Ottawa. at this last in-person meeting. July 28th, a joint letter was sent from Dr. Cindy Blackstock and Regional Chief Joanna Bernard and ourselves to Prime Minister Carney and Minister Fisk requesting commitment to returning to negotiations. We followed that with obviously the summit, the Prime Minister Summit in person, the urgency of this file, the urgency to raise, to get back to the table. Canada's reply to the letters is there seems to be a confusion regarding the role of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. And that's where we need, and I just want to reiterate, there is a confusion regarding the role of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. We are not confused. We have very clear instructions and direction from the Chiefs and Assembly by way of the resolutions, reciting back to the Charter of AFN that gives absolute jurisdictional rights to advance in this regime we're in and get back to the table. The National Children's Chiefs Commission has been given authority, and we need to certainly assert our jurisdiction and our rights with Canada, that we are not confused as a nation. We are absolutely clear on our mandate, clear on our objective, and for Canada to come and say they are essentially confused. And so we bring that back to the attention of Assembly, the Chiefs and Assembly, is we cannot ever, ever compromise our position by, suggesting or encouraging that we are not working together. We have to demonstrate to Canada that we are lockstep in this. And I just want to again reiterate Joanna Bernard's position and my position as the chair and the commissioners behind me to say, we need to continue on together, and how and why it is that we need AFN with us. Well, it's the Chiefs and Assembly has directed, but the executive of AFN is still maybe not working with us in good faith, and that's the honest fact. And is it the executive that drives the process? Well, I'm not. I don't know AFN well enough inside and out, but I do know that the executive team of AFN really manages the day-to-day transactions within Assembly First Nations, and we do want to try to break down that barrier. And nearly all of the commission letters that we sent to Canada have gone unanswered. And the meetings we requested have gone unanswered. And although we want to work with Canada and get them back to the table, we also need to, solidify with the Chiefs and Assembly the establishment of the National Children's Chiefs Commission based on our work to date, that we are fully functional. We are mandated from the executive of AFN per Resolution 60/2024 and 61/2024. Calling on the establishment of the National Children's Chiefs Commission. And that's what we know with respect to the executive of AFN. We do have some work to do there. In December, the commission met again, and then as we evolve, we do meet every 2 weeks, as I said earlier. Nevertheless, there are several regions that have supported the commission's work with the regional chiefs. We still have regional chiefs that we have some work to do with in terms of guiding them around the collaboration agreement and what we've done. We've established a collaboration agreement with the Caring Society, and that's really just so that we don't one working at odds with the other, that we have a fluid relationship, and that's the relationship we want to build with AFN as well, is having a fluid relationship of ensuring that we don't have legal counsel for AFN advancing a file without consulting with the NCCC's legal counsel or technical team. Commission is seeking to advance the legal deliverables around, with Caring Society and the Outcomes of Human Rights Tribunal, and collaborating and seeking a co-lead as we advance on AFN's legal filings or alignment with the Commission's negotiating position. So that's Caring Society's consultation motion litigation to compel Canada to return to negotiations. We're taking every possible angle with regards to the rights holders. So communications, we have this webinar right now as a way of conversing with you across the country. We also have a website that's built and designed to allow for dialogue to happen and sharing of knowledge that is connected to Our Children Our Way. I want to just acknowledge the team for doing such a great job in pulling the information together. Okay, so we are now going to move on, Michelle, to the next section. So there are specific areas that as we discussed, we established a negotiating team, and clearly you want to be, the Commission is pretty clear around establishing a mandate and bringing Canada back to negotiations. And before we get there, we wanted to look at what emerged from Canada, what is the pathway for renewed negotiation since last year, and then we wanted to look at what does Canada mean when they say that we're not looking at regional agreements and we're not prepared to go back to renegotiating, but knowing that we had to come away with some critical areas that we highlighted as taking a negotiating position. So where do we start, right? We look at the legal obligations of Canada, and then looking at the agreement and trying to respond from a place of common understanding across the country of what was national reform and renegotiations will look like. So there were outstanding issues that was identified, and I'll highlight that here. Funding commitment was one. Canadian Human Rights Tribunal jurisdiction. Governance is huge. Departmental reform, obviously internally to Canada, how the bureaucracy works isn't always in good practices. Elimination of discrimination sort of stems from there. So accountability is important as well, the measurables and the outcomes. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the regional variations. Where do we get data? What does a formula agreement look like? What does this formula look like across the country? I know for us in the self-governing context, we look at price, population, remoteness, and then we look at our database and the registry numbers, and we go from there and we start to negotiate up. So you have to start from a place of common understanding. So C92 is critical to us, and of course, looking at treaty nations and self-governing nations, you'll see the language in the resolutions that they were presented. There's language in there around the non-derogation clause. So you might, Canada would say, well, I have no obligation to work with a self-governing nation or a treaty nation because I have a previous agreement with you. And you have, but at the same time, it's constitutionally protected agreements. We want to be able to ensure that we don't have one region receiving more than the other region, that we have to look at equity, transparency across the country, and remind us that there are requirements for eligibility for resources and supports from Canada. And it's important that we think about protecting rights of individuals and rights of our nation, rights of our children. And so an element of confidentiality and structure is really critical and important, and that will come back to the regional variations. There were some definitions around, and there's some concerns around principles as they apply. And the terms of the agreement, and Canada has ignored the Commission's proposals to negotiate a letter of commitment, and the NCC submissions are still outstanding. And so, that's kind of the state of the nation right now. It's like there's no advancements, yet we talk about reconciliation, remediation. We think about, how we're reconciling Canada's discriminatory practices. It dates back to residential schools. I think about the Yukon, and I think about the Alaska Highway, right? You think about what's happening right now when you talk about Arctic security and sovereignty across the north. Well, if you're going to continue larger military presence in the north, just think about what happened with the Alaska Highway as it blazed through, really areas of the Yukon, and the impact and effect, because it's all about systemic racism and compound effect of large industrial development in our regions. And so when we think about outstanding issues, who's impacted the most? It's the mothers and the children, right? It's not, so the question from here is, we established the commission, we have the chiefs, we have the commissioners, and we have a team of negotiators ready to move. And so politically, we have to push hard as commissioners, and we're doing our very best. And I'm hoping that we can get to the Prime Minister, and we can explain, and we can take the time. And I think it's important that we all take this, an opportunity to do a bit of a writing campaign to Canada and to Minister Galmasti and to Prime Minister to say, the urgency of this and how important this is. And these are our outstanding issues yet unresolved. So that sort of goes way back to, millennia, but it's almost, our very existence, and what happened, and why are we in this position? I often share the experience that as a minister, as a regional minister, sitting at federal, provincial, territorial ministers' meetings with ministers from across the country, as being the only female Indigenous women at the table, and they're talking about Indigenous child welfare and child welfare reform, and essentially I sat there and I felt they were I had to stop the discussion with almost predominantly men to say, look, you know what? Right now, I feel like you're talking about me while I'm in the room. Imagine what it must feel like for the children that are out there. Like, I am a product of the system. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do to avoid, continued discriminatory practices. That just blew me out of the water at that point. And here I am all these years later, 5 years later, standing here trying to correct what I sat in the middle of as a nation. And, so I'm speaking from my own experience. We all have those experiences to share. And I think that's what we have to really get to our federal leaders. And I heard from, Minister Galmasti when I met with her, and she's like, look, just a few short months ago, I sat at your table. I sat out there on this floor as we were 300 chiefs sitting at the table. And she said, I'm just learning the federal bureaucracy. I'm learning the system. And, I may not have the answers, and I'm looking for all the help I can get. Well, that indicated to me that, maybe she's open to this meeting. Maybe we can influence and change. And if she is an Indigenous woman, understanding the complexities of our region, appealing to her heart and appealing to her experience on the ground, is I think a strategy, and just getting to the heart of the matter when we speak to they are human beings, and they do come from our communities as well. So that said, how were the NCCC positions developed? Resolutions passed by FN member nations. We have, as I indicated, expert members on the panel, on the commission. We have experts on the research, on our research team. We have lots of evidence across the country. We have evidence and support from Our Children Our Way. We have, I know we have really great supports around the table, like, you know, Kim Warnick and Mary TG and others that are very, very passionate and quick to jump to support and starting to draft and prepare us without hesitation. You know, we have had various input and comments from across the country with respect to the, you know, the reform and you know, as commissioners, we're trying to implement and deliver the mandate as we've been tasked with. And at the same time, we do need to support the non-AFN First Nations. We can never move without that input, and I think that's really important. We can't just run through AFN executive and regional chiefs and commissioners without you know, stating that every nation, regardless if you choose to be at AFN or be a member of AFN. I can tell you Vuntut Gwitchin's not a formal member of AFN. We're a self-governing nation, but I sure showed up at the assembly, at Chiefs and Assembly. So you have a right to show up and register yourself, and you will have a vote at the table, which I've learned quickly is you have a voice and you have a vote whether you choose to be a member or not. And you can walk in and you know, reject, modify, or amend resolutions that are on the floor, and you have a voice. And I encourage you to show up and present your voices at the table. I think that's critical. We are now moving on to the, I see on the screen, there's you know, Chiefs and Assembly were very clear that their rejection wasn't based solidly on the funding. There's, as I indicated earlier, you know, we do need to speak to the rights holders across the country. So lots of strategies going forward with respect to our engagement, our communications, and developing a negotiated front. Where NCCC is your voice, commissioners are your voice. We look always for feedback. We always look for your input. We have vowed from the very, very beginning that we would function openly, transparently. We will engage. We will structure ourselves as a professional organization. And we will advance your interest, not our interest. We're here to essentially speak truth to you know, speak truth about the matter and be honest about the very difficult questions that we are left with. How do we fix a broken system? How do we fix the relationship with, you know, with Canada, but also on a regional basis? We don't want to ever be divided as a nation, as nations across the country. So received, I think we'll move on to the next phase of our, I'm just going to do a time check because we are at 10 to 12 right now. And we're going to take a few minutes break. It says 10 minutes here, but I suggest we shorten that and maybe just take 5 minutes and then reconvene, and so that we can try to get back on target so that we can keep a longer time open for questions and answers and commissioners to participate in the discussion and the dialogue. If that's okay with you, Michelle, and others, commissioners, co-chair? Good, thumbs up. So I'll just encourage you to have a bit of a coffee break, stand up, stretch, do your grounding exercise. I think it's important to, you know, reflect, do some breathing exercises, and then obviously give thanks for the day and the beautiful country we have, but we also give thanks for our beautiful children. And yeah, so we'll take a few minutes just to reflect a bit, and then we'll reconvene. everyone. I think we're reconvene. Hope you had a little breather and time to ground yourself. Heavy conversation. And you know, I want to just where are we now? And action in response to resolutions, successes and challenges. I'll just looking at earlier discussions, we talked about our relationship with the Assembly First Nations. We talked about the chiefs and assembly, the acceptance of or the establishment of NCCC. So now, if an executive did not establish the commission, instead they sought a legal review. They did not implement it. I have to say that early on, right? We established a Chiefs Commission. The commissioners were appointed across the country. We attempted various meetings to establish ourselves and move forward in trying to do this work that we've been tasked with in good faith. And the executive did not establish a commission. Instead, they sought a legal review of resolution 1661 with their legal counsel, Peter Mantis and Baskin Law Firm. The opinion that came back was that the resolutions do not comply with law and will require significant amendments to FN Charter, which exceeds the FN's own mandate, are voided and cannot be implemented under the current legal regime. So, you know, I think we finally resolved that not to be the case based on legal opinion back and forth. We've sought other views. I think that's important. We sought other views around the opinion that was presented in the misinterpretation of the Baskin opinion that failed to appreciate the inherent authority of the First Nations and Assembly and the FN's charter and legal framework. You know, the opinion was maybe a little bit flawed in that regard. We wanted to look at not to highlight a failed process or that the charter I read to you earlier is not in compliance with the Chiefs and Assembly's mandate and order as per the resolution. So we had to look for a mechanism going forward. Certainly can't create something separate from an existing system. So we have to be a part of the Assembly First Nation structure, organization, design, and deliverables as per their charter. And so importantly is that the Secretariat and Executive Committee needs to implement the resolutions of the First Nations and Assembly to the extent that the resolutions may be, whether it's inconsistent with the charter or the governance structure or not, as they've interpreted it. We want to maintain good faith discussions with Assembly First Nations. We want to look at the regions and stepping up to implementing Resolution 1661. We have our own processes established, and I've highlighted that for you. And we've had, well, I would say since mid-January, all the regions across the country have participated, and I just really want to honor you for that. The actions with respect to the resolutions, if an executive and NCC are to ensure good governance structures, that we need to be transparent, we need to be accountable, we need to include youth, include the guidance of youth and formerly Youth in Care, and we know that the Caring Society does a fantastic job of that. So we have already a structured process that is proving to be successful. We need to also look at family children's service experts from across the country. There's currently an expert advisory panel that was established through a process. Well, we've had meetings with them, sought their input, and developing an amendment process going forward. The tools that are resources, tools that we govern, how we govern ourselves as Indigenous people, Indigenous nations across the country, is always to look at grounded in culture, grounded in respect, and grounded in integrity, and looking at being transparent and open with one another. And as we know, as nations, it's easy for us to have difficult conversations. And so long as we do it with good and kind hearts, and we look to changing a process and ensuring that changes are made, and that we have an opportunity to educate and inform regions, and we certainly don't want to do it without without responding to maybe some misunderstandings, or around perhaps what it is we're doing that we don't ever want to feel, or for you to feel that you're not a part of this process. So actions are important, and they need to be fulfilled or followed through on, as we've been mandated to do via the Chiefs and Assembly. So clear, consistent, concise packages moving forward. We have to look at the Assembly, First Nations. We look at the Assembly of First Nations Chiefs and Assembly coming up in September. And we also discussed a review and approving our terms of reference, and we have done that, and we've shared that broadly with the AFN, with others. If you require, everything is public interface. AFN executive is to unconditionally include the Caring Society in negotiations on the Family Children Services and Jordan's principle. Conduct negotiations pursuant to the negotiation protocols developed by Caring Society, and ensure negotiations are open and transparent and accountable. And of course, we don't ever want to be put in a compromising position again, ever, in that you're given 14 days to respond to a comprehensive document that took years to conclude. And then it's put on your desk, and something shows up on my desk 2 weeks before, and I'm like, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to analyze this? And all of a sudden you have a team around you, and you spend hours and hours, yet you have you have your governments to run and deliverables. And so ensuring you have adequate review period is really important before you vote on something, whatever it is that's presented to you in front of you. And so the commission essentially has taken the necessary steps and putting our packages together, and ensuring that we have some amending resolutions that we're presenting to the Chiefs and Assembly next month. And I think that we ultimately are looking for a successful outcome, and it's difficult to get to a successful outcome if we're not working together. Support is critical and essential from all of our regional chiefs. We have, as I've observed, we have a majority of the regional chiefs supporting us through the executive. The resolutions that we've put forward, we've received support from nations and treaty organizations. We have letters and that direct the advocacy work that we're doing, and we certainly need to honor the national reform objective, right? How do we reform? Well, certainly need to get back to negotiating, right? What a national reform will look like, so long as we understand the points that we raised earlier in the previous slide, the 10 specific areas that we needed to put our minds around as a region. We have most recently appointed Joanna Bernard, and I acknowledged her earlier. I will just keep reiterating, she's keen and very passionate, I have to say, passionate about this file, and passionate about her work, and passionate about finding some solutions. And I think we'll do well together. She participates in all of our bi-weekly meetings. We are looking at connections across the Canadian Human Rights Related Tribunal tables, and we have met. Met with Dr. Blackstock to give us the pulse on the most recent hearing, and how do we keep informed? And that's really important. Keep informed of current and changing matters before us or current circumstances. The website that was built by the NCCC is there for transparency, for feedback. It was created to allow you all to dialogue and engage and share common information, so no one's ever giving sometimes I may say things that may not always be correct or appropriate, but the intention is never to create ill harm for anyone, but to create consistent messaging. And that's partly why the design of the website and the webinar, and we have experts on the line to bring that feedback back to all of you. And the Caring Society and NCCC sent a letter to Canada most recently and asking them to come back in good faith to the table. We did a line-by-line review, and in reviewing that document, I think the technical review committee also looked at the Ontario Agreement, and the NCC Appointees Administration has a strong legal team, despite the lack of funding, looked at all of the documents before us and looked at, it's not all, you looked at the successes and look at the great things that are coming out of these agreements. What's going to work for us? What's compromising our position? Maybe what can we do to improve the agreements? And that's where the NCCC and our technical team and our legal team has, along with the Caring Society, put our minds together to craft a potential framework document that could form a basis for potential renegotiated arrangements with Canada. So in the meanwhile, as my uncle would say, in the meanwhile, back at the ranch, we all do our work as regional chiefs, as regional technicians. We still are working on our respective traditional territories while still trying to keep this on the highest priority with Canada. Every opportunity we get, we raise this. Every opportunity we get to convey messages and work with our partners, and intending to bring proponents back to the table for this new framework. I think that's a critical element. So success, challenges that we've seen, Canada's failure to come back to the table, no mandate yet to renegotiate. And Commission's funding, well, we still have no funding, so that's not good either. We can't continue on this without the resources. We are, and we will continue on, but at some point the question is, how do we advance the interest given the chiefs and assembly? So that will be a very difficult question, or a question that we will ask the chiefs and assembly. Surely you can't expect us to continue on this path and implement your vision for reform without the resources and the tools to do so. At some point it's going to come to a head, and I believe that message needs to be given at the commission level to the chiefs and assembly, and then getting back to Canada, because ultimately we need AFN on our side working with us to get our budget and our work plan endorsed by Canada. So lack of proactive actions by AFN to implement resolutions and supporting the commission. We have the commission, we do not have a standing at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. Obviously we're brand new, so it would be in this case the Assembly First Nations, and over the mechanism to implement and to that's put in place for future submissions. So there are members submitting intervener status or interested party status, and we have the expert advisory panel that I spoke of earlier, and national advisory committees. They need to be formally reconvened and supported to their fullest mandate as well, because they need to support us and we need to support them. And it's difficult when you have committees and across the country that have been established and not supported fiscally because we don't have the maybe political uncertainty in times as well. Straining budgets. As we know, economy is compromised in Canada right now. We have the free trade agreement. We have pressures with our partners, across the globe. But at the same time, if we can put billions and billions of dollars in the Arctic for Arctic security and sovereignty, and we can put billions and billions of dollars into, commissions for pipelines and such across the country, and thinking that Build Canada and the format for building the economic viability and sustainability of our country, if the resources are going there, surely they must be able to put some funding into our children and the obligations they have to fulfill. And it's gone through litigation, and the end result is, do you want to go back to litigation if you're not able to fulfill the obligations of the Human Rights Tribunal and the recommendations of, elimination of racial discrimination on all fronts? What is our ultimate option at this point, right? And it's not years, it's months. So what is going to evolve in the coming months? Assembly Nations coming up. What happens after that is getting to the Prime Minister, getting to the Minister, working with AFN and working with the executive team of AFN, and they need to support the Assembly of the word of the Assembly. And I'm sure we're going to see some amending resolutions before the Assembly. So those are the challenges that we're seeing right now. There's roles and responsibilities when the nations come together. There'll be some questions around negotiating, the negotiating team, looking at a legal perspective and the correlation with the direction from AFN, which goes back into the earlier comments I made with respect to the legal review from Faskin and, the violation of the charter. Those are all questions that chiefs have, the questions that the regions have, but it's one voice, one perspective, and at the same time we think about NCCC's resolutions. They are meeting all the constitutional obligations and deliverables of our nation because they came out of the Assembly, and we have a mandate suggesting that proposing that AFN has taken no legal action and no legal position at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. And Canada is using AFN's disinterest and inactively excusing their obligations to not meet with us. These are extremely frustrating and it's very divisive. It's a tactic that I'm not comfortable with, and we are not comfortable with. So, it's frustrating for sure. And we do need to push to get Canada to the table. And we have to force renewed negotiations. I'm going to turn your attention to the QR code in the bottom left-hand corner. There are questions, further questions that we are going to just bring to your attention and have you maybe focus on responding to those questions. I'll turn to our technical team, to just pull those up, if I may ask. Okay, so on the QR code, just the first question, if you can, under the QR code, roles and responsibility of National Children's Chiefs Commission. Legal when Chiefs and Assembly directed NCC to establish new negotiating team, and legal did not intend for legal to be taking direction from AFN. So do we take direction from Assembly First Nations Legal Council, or do we take recommendations from the legal counsel that was appointed by the chiefs and the NCCC? I think that's what we have to get clear on. We cannot continue to take advice and direction of in-house lawyer of AFN. The objective of the resolutions was to move away and put at arm's length NCCC so that we essentially can take a neutral stand across the country and not get bogged down and an AFN's bureaucracy or their structure. I think that's really critical to note. And then the other question is, what happened to AFN's position on Canadian Human Rights Tribunal undermines the effort of the NCCC? Should the role of NCC be augmented at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal proceedings, given that AFN will not support those who have applied for interested party status? You know, I'm just going to ask that you respond to these questions on your own time, just in light of the fact that we're pushing the envelope here with time. So I'm just going to ask you to queue up the questions, work through the questions as we continue our dialogue. It's probably best that we do it this way, and save the code and then look at you know, providing responses. So let's talk a bit now about next steps, and our co-chair will walk us through this phase of the webinar. The resolutions being brought to AFN in September, and then the next steps on the technical work that's yet to be to come. So I'll turn over to co-chair Deb Foxcroft.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chief Frost, for and our chair for the amazing presentations. There is a lot, as you can see. We've done a lot. I just want to acknowledge our technical people, our leadership that have been beside us doing this important work on behalf of our children and youth. We couldn't have done it without all of you. And we all come to the table with open minds and hearts, especially for us to uphold our sacred responsibility for our children and youth. That's why we're all here, and that's why we're doing this work. So next steps, we have resolutions that are going to be brought forward to the All Chiefs Assembly at the beginning of September. We will be bringing a report or an update to by NCCC, and we will be going to the table to the chiefs, just affirming again our First Nations direction on long-term reform, which has been passed in 2 meetings, the one that was in Calgary and also our last AFN meeting, giving us the mandate to move forward in a good way. So we will be getting that direction again, or confirming that, and we will be looking at approving terms of reference for our First Nations Children Family Services and Jordan's Principles table, and also the Jordan's Principle Operations, which is also under these resolutions that we have put forward. I've just just ask any of our commissioners to step in if I forgot something or I need to be corrected. I just wanted, I am also struggling with the technical difficulties here, so I can see some of you, but I can't see all of you, and I can't see the questions, so please bear with me. So I just wanted to really put it out there because as you can see, there's been tremendous work done and really good work. And we appreciate you being here, taking the time to be on this webinar. A lot of it, as you can see, we've accomplished a lot in a very short time. And we don't do it for ourselves. We're doing it for our children and our youth and our families. So I say that just would appreciate your support at this next very important meeting in the beginning of September. All of you that are here, please reach out to us if you need anything or any more information. We're, as we said, we're open and transparent to get this work done. Okay, so just wanted to say we appreciate you being here and sitting here and just being by our side. We appreciate and need your support. So I think the resolutions that we're talking about that gives us the mandate to do this work are, I think, on the QR code or in your packages. And so if you have, as we said, we're open and transparent, and we want to ensure that you can send any suggestions or changes to the NCC ahead of the AFN meetings, so we can try to organize before the gathering. Again, just appreciate your support, and we are open and transparent to any of your suggestions or views or changes. So if you could just let us know if you're aware of any NCC adjustment, or I think it was resolutions being, any other adjacent resolutions being brought forward, we would appreciate that. I don't have anything else on that. Just again, recognizing our technical team, our amazing team that have been doing this work for us, with us, on behalf of our children and youth. So the next steps, of course, is the technical work and collaboration. So our team has developed 3 technical subcommittees, and that's only been probably the last few weeks or month. So one is on framework drafting, one is on communications. As I heard from the feedback that we got so far, we know that communications is critical, and we've been working diligently to do this. Just wanted to let you know that our webinar unfortunately has not been finalized. Somebody could correct me if I'm not. So I just wanted to let you know that. And also the other subcommittee is government relations. And these committees are open to any of our commissioners, any of the staff that are within those First Nations, or any First Nation. So I just wanted to say that that work is being done already, started, and it's just, so as you can see, that we want to be prepared to go into negotiations ASAP, as soon as possible. And that's why we've done this work to date. Working with national, we are looking at working with the National Advisory Committee and collaborating with them. This list is, I guess the National Advisory Committee was formerly NAC, who has been working on this for the last, I don't know, 15 years or 17 years. And they have, there's also an Expert Advisory Committee, the EAC, and the Caring Society and Jordan's Principal Operations Committee, JPOC, it's the abbreviation. So we've been working with these groups, the amazing groups that have been the experts in doing the work prior to us, preparing us for these important negotiations coming up on behalf of our children. So in terms of the commissioners' reflections, I don't know if anybody will be speaking to this, but you know, why is this work important to the commissioners? And I just wanted to say, again, we come here doing this work because it's a sacred responsibility for all of us to love and care for our children. And we have that responsibility as Indigenous people, First Nations. What have they learned as rights holders, and what is the frustrations? I can say that there's been amazing work, but there also has been the frustrations, and I feel like roadblocks putting in front of us, but we continue to do this work because it's important to all of us. And as our chair said, we do this because we love and care for our children. I just wanted to say in terms of, these are just some questions to think about in terms of the rights holders reflections. What questions do you have of us? What advice can you give the commission? How do you want to be supported in the future? So I put that out there, just sending our thoughts and prayers to all of you, and especially to asking for the direction of our ancestors to be by our side, to do this very important work. We can't do it. And I just wanted to say I acknowledge and honor the leadership that has been around the table with us, that have made this a priority. We've had a lot of meetings and a lot of work getting to this point, and to our technical team, we couldn't have done this without them. And we certainly, whoever is at the table, whoever is working in children and families, again, we appreciate all of your work. And I think that's all I have to say. Clicko, chew.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Foxcroft, for your support on that particular part of the webinar. So great questions, you know, and so I'll turn to the commissioners now to see if you can just provide some of your reflections for others to hear. What does this work mean to you, and how important is it? And what have we learned? What have you learned? You've heard my perspective, but I think it's important that you just share broadly your reaction from across the country in each one of your regions. What have you seen? What have you heard? And a reflection on, you know, questions that you have, or, you know, advice going forward for those that are new to this file. So I'll just open it up in that way, and maybe take the next few minutes to do that, and then just maybe raise your hand, and we're using the icon there, and then we'll just try to keep our time comments short, given that we have 25 to 1, and we want to keep open up for discussion and debate as well. So responding to questions and trying to respond with some answers to those present on the webinar today. So any commissioners, you don't all have to respond, but those that may have a burning desire to share, I'll turn to you now.
Miigwech, I know other people have their hand up as well, and I have failed to find the little emoji for mine. I'm Chief, Vicky Chief. I'm from Témiscamingue First Nation. I'm the Quebec regional rep for the commission. Some reflections that I really think are important to share, you know, and I'll keep this more about unity. I found, you know, when all the chiefs were in Calgary, that it was such a great, overwhelming support of the work and the will of the chiefs to say that we want our voices to be heard. We want our input and our say in such an important resource, our children. So as a commissioner, I'm very proud to be upholding this work, and more importantly, to be carrying out the will of the chiefs in assembly, who gave a clear and overwhelming mandate back in Calgary. And as Deb said, you know, we will be looking for support once again come September, and that will be really important for us to have the type of solidarity and momentum and organization that we saw in Calgary. That being said, I do know that there is going to be limited space where at the next AGA. So that being said, we may not have as much space for our regional caucus rooms. So I think it's really important to be able to have a space for folks to give resources through the website, or, you know, speak about organization prior to the AGA. But that being said, a couple of slides here really, I think, nailed home what the commission has been up against. And I do want to take the time to really thank all of the people who support this work. Our technical team has been an integral part of getting the work done that that has been done so far. And we really couldn't be doing this work without them. So there are a lot of really dedicated folks, and Chief Pauline, you've done a great job. Deb, you've done a great job hosting this webinar. For your first webinar, Pauline, it's much appreciated. And if people, you know, would like to see more of this from the commission, I'm sure that we would be willing to organize and create space, even if another needs to be held before that. Maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn in reality of the time commitment that this does require on our part. But that being said, I just really want to thank everyone for being here. It shows your commitment, whether you're a chief or a support staff or from a service agency. We all need to be upholding the health and well-being of our children and our communities.
Thank you.
Chief Gwitch.
Masi, I'll, just keeping tabs on the fact that we have 20 minutes left in the webinar, and we don't want to just not discourage in any way time as a limit, but to say that to the those that are present. I see we have 176 members on the webinar. Please send your questions, put it in the chat box. We will respond. I want to just re-emphasize the urgency and the importance of collaborating and maybe breaking down some of the silos and barriers that we see in front of us, and how do we do that? Communication is an effective way of getting that out by way of newsletters, briefings, summary notes. Refer to that summary note that was provided. That's a really good. It captures, it's 8 pages. It captures everything in one comprehensive document. We are going to attempt to host a room or a gathering place, if we, that's still being worked out, but to be a central point in Winnipeg, so that folks can come and ask questions, or we can work together. It's important also that we, as we look at the breakout rooms and the regional breakout rooms, if as regions you need the commission to come in and provide this type of information to your regions as a briefing prior to going into assembly, I'd like to just encourage that. I will be there. I know other commissioners are going to be there as well. It is always our intention and our objective to share so that we do not miss anything, and that we are essentially working together. Information is important, but teamwork is just as important. And the website, YouTube YouTube channel. So we're going to put this all up together so that it's accessible after this as well. So thank you, Vicky Chief, for your observations, great observations. Any other commissioner with a couple of minutes just to give a high level oversight, and then we'll move into the latter part of and that's just to open up for a few questions, and note that technicians are online as well. So things that are technical in nature or legal in nature, we have folks online that can respond to your questions. So commissioners, any?
Yeah. Good morning, Chief Kelsey Jacko, Treaty 6, Alberta. We have a lot of people here from Alberta region. We can't do this all alone. So, I would like more participation by Alberta. We do have a website out there for everybody to put input there, National Children's Chiefs Commission.org. No spaces, all lowercase. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating, it just seems like we're not going nowhere. We're in the same spot. Seems AFN is not listening to us, their adversary group, and we're the rights holders. Alberta been 30 years, they have established agencies, and I like to talk about the environment scan, how does it look for Alberta? Because, as me as a commission here, I can't move forward without any input from Alberta. So hopefully I get some more input. And I just give a shout out to Chief Frost. She did a lot of stuff off the top of her head, and yeah, I'm just if AFN don't want to work with us, the minister don't want to work with us, Canada doesn't want to work with us, I'll just say it here. It might be a shit show at the assembly in Winnipeg. I know we're short on time, and I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Jacko. Always pleasure. Your honesty is important. Looking at the environmental scan, I think that's an important piece of moving forward regionally. We have a mandate to convey messages to our regions, and not everyone's at the table. And so I think it's really important. If you are in your region, if you are having an assembly, if you are having a meeting of the nations, then call and we'll come and present so that we essentially can share this information very broadly in advance of the assembly, and certainly don't want to create any animosity going forward. We want to try to build a better future for ourselves and our children, and the only way to get there is to get us all at the table as nations, because Canada's good at dividing the nation and conquering the nation region by region, and that's not what we want. And we want to be able to deliver that message strong and loud and clear at the Chiefs and Assembly. Bring your voices to the table is what I encourage you to do. Please come strong, come prepared to stand together and build unity. And Assembly First Nations has an obligation to fulfill its mandate. You passed the resolution. You put the resolutions forward, and they were supported, and huge dialogue and debate. And certainly don't want what is described as a shit show. We certainly don't want that. We want to be able to convey respectful dialogue in a respectful way, because Canada will catch on to the fact that we're not working together and use that against us. That's certainly not what we want. So let's try to focus conversation around, challenges, perspectives, but look at solutions and be solutions oriented around the next steps. We have 3 committees really strongly established with huge representation, right? The committees that co-chair highlighted: Drafting Framework Working Group Committee, that's to work to end discrimination and develop a legal strategy. Amazing team on there doing that work. So we'll be able to present these to the floor, to the assembly and to the nations and the leadership there. Government Relations Working Group, that's very important because it's our relationship with each other, our relationship to an intergovernmental forum with Canada, with our regions, and of course with AFN. Communications, we have expert communicators, expert advisory group that has long-standing roots in the industry and with respect to developing webinars and messages and fulfilling the reports back. Tracy and Kyla have been doing a fantastic job for us in getting this stuff together. So I just will conclude here and turn to those online to ask if you have any questions. Do you have any questions that you want to ask of us in these last few minutes of our webinar? Any questions that you might need answered that we didn't cover? And I believe I think we have Chief Helen Henderson that had her hand up.
And Marilyn Bulldog.
And Marilyn, please. Helen, if it's okay, I'll go to Marilyn first and then I'll come back to you. So Marilyn. Okay. Because I can't see everyone online, I only see a sort of a few folks. So can I ask the technical team just to highlight for me if we have any questions coming? And I know there's a lot of questions through the the QR code bar, and then on the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see the Q&A question mark in the icon there. There are a number of questions there as well. But I'll just ask again, do we have anyone online that wants to ask their question rather than having it in this printed format that you might want to ask now? I love this comment. Grateful for this presentation as it ignited hope, ignited hope. So I think that's what we're trying to do is instill pride in where we are and always a hope for a better future for our children, and that we are solutions oriented and we will continue to serve our children.
Hi, Marilyn. Can you unmute your microphone, please? On the very bottom ribbon, on the left-hand side, you'll see audio. And if you click that, you'll be able to unmute yourself. And while you're doing that, I'm wondering if we should go to Cookpee Helen Henderson.
Let's do that, Helen. We have the mic now.
Wait, Cookpee Helen Henderson once quest. Hello, everyone. My name is Chief Helen Henderson, and I'm from Chikeskin First Nation, and I was a late appointee to the commission, and I'm happy to be doing this work alongside all of you. Some of the reflection, certainly, that I've had in this process is that I'm very process-minded. And what are the guiding principles that, guide our work? What are the legalities around the work? What protocols, et cetera, do we need in place? What works, what doesn't? And what I've found for sure is that, all the formalities, all the issues and challenges that we have been facing hasn't been in our space. We have been willing and able and ready to go at the table since the beginning, since the commission was established. That's one of the reflections certainly that I have. But also, some of the questions that I've noticed is, how do we move forward? What are the solutions moving forward, knowing that things have seemingly broken down? And part of that is, recognizing that this is a very strategic move on the federal government's part in how they interact with Indigenous, or how they interact with title and rights holders, for sure. And some of the ways that they're able to silo us in all jurisdictional fields is through things like NDA agreements, so that we show up and even have a conversation. We can't have those conversations unless we sign something away. Under coordination agreement, table discussions, we have something called protocol, table protocol, which has confidentiality attached to that. So that prevents, tables from checking in with other tables on things that impact them, for sure, or impact everyone across the board. And these are siloed barriers that all of us continue to face, no matter which jurisdictional field that we are currently highlighting. And the last thing that I really want to highlight here for me as a commissioner trying to find solutions, put solutions in place, which is what we've been doing, is then ask those critical process questions about the body that's supposed to represent us. Okay, what are the challenges there and how do we overcome governing issues? And that takes a lot of time and energy for sure, but that's a learning outcome moving forward in any political space. How we're represented, what's the value added, and what's the structure that guides us to protect conversations moving forward. So we've been mitigating all of that along the way, trying to present a clear pathway, which we feel that we have. It's just that doors, keep closing, or they're trying to keep closing doors. And that's my perspective. And that's how I certainly see things when I show up at a table, and when I feel like we're seemingly not being heard in all of these spaces. So the work is critical and vital as for any rights holder moving forward. We're talking about 7 generations, and we don't want our children in the future to inherit these things. And we certainly don't want to repeat what the federal government has been doing to us since contact and do that to our own people. So we're facing all of those issues in a very siloed way, and they like that divide and conquer tactic so that we don't come to resolution or solution-based resolutions on things like off reserve, on reserve, on things like funding. So those are my very high level reflections of various jurisdictional fields that I've been witness to, but also, my ability to bring these types of issues to the NCCC table, because we need clarity and answers on how we're able to talk to one another. And when Canada sets those rules, it doesn't feel good. So
I appreciate your input and your feedback, and I think it's really about the cultural competencies and the cultural integrity as
absolutely.
Well.
Thank you so much.
Certainly things we want to tie in. We don't ever want to move forward without, Canada creating a space. It's time for us to create the space, and that's the objective of NCCC and the chiefs from across the country. And
I'd like to just
so I'm just
conclude my thoughts, Chief Frost, just on that alone.
May I just
children's voices forward in this process. And that's exactly what every commissioner has done, is we've tried to raise our children's voices into those 7 generations into the future, looking for solutions. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate. We have 5 minutes left in the webinar, and I'd like to conclude here and say thank you, Gwinchish, Sogosinla, Masicho, to all of you, all that participated today, the commissioners. I want to just acknowledge you all and say what an honor it is to do this work. And, we stand proud, and it brings me to my knees sometimes when I see barriers, and I, living in this isolated community I'm in, I see it all the time. So I am ever grateful to all of you and the technical team. And I'd like to now conclude in a very positive way and ask that our great mentor and leader give us Judy Red Hummingbird Wilson closing prayer and ground us before we move on into our respective lives. I would say, Dikkanoti, Creator guides you wherever you go. Shonitli, makes my heart happy to see you all here and honoring the children. Work's continuing. We will advance our work. We will continue to work hard, and we will do it together. And the commission and the commissioners have committed to doing that, just that. And I have to say, it's not been easy. We've had our chances and our opportunities to go back and forth, not always in agreement, but we end at the end of the day with consensus and advancing. So that said, questions that have been asked and left hanging in the Q&A, we will respond and get back to your questions and provide you certainty on at least some certainty and clarification. So Judy, if I may, please.
Thank you, Chief Frost. Thank you for everyone being in the circle and staying on and closing, so we can close in a good way. Cooksham, Kelcookby, Creator, Great Spirit, we thank you, Creator, for all the seen and unseen blessings you give us each and every day, especially for the circle of life with our children, our grandchildren, and those yet to come. Their heart-centered work, as Deb Foxcroft always teaches us, and also our energy and focuses with our children. And those that are waiting to come home, those are in the system, those that are in temporary care, and those that are with their family and extended family, and those that are still might be going through a very hard time through the system. We pray that we can bring them home, and also that we can show them the love and caring that they are always, it's always there, but we've been separated from that. So we want to bring the families together and bring the people that are working so hard to do that, that the doors will open so that we can do that in a good way. And we pray that all the collective mind, body, and spirit will come together for these efforts, and also that that we'll walk in a good way together, as the children usually unite us, and the children usually show us the way. Those are our prophecies, and those are also coming into fruition with what's being carried out to this day. We have our home fires, and we have our medicine bundles, and we have our grandfathers, our grandmothers, and our ancestors with us, and also those matriarchs and the leadership that have worked tirelessly across the country, Creator, and also all levels of government. We pray that they will come to see this, that this is not a time to be separating or dividing. It's a time to come together, especially with the uncertainty, with the war conflicts, with the tariffs, and with also the climate crises that we're facing. At this time, we need to pull together and come together in a good way. So we pray for the undersheltered, underserved, and underrepresented, that they get the support and resources that they need. We also pray for support and resources to the ones displaced from the wildfires and the flooding and the extreme weather. And we also pray for the ones that are mental health and addictions that need that comfort and support at this time as well. So we thank you, Creator, for all your blessings for our beautiful Mother Earth that sustains us with everything, and also the sacred water that's medicine, but also nourishes us, and also is an important to us in our daily lives, that we can connect with water, and it can heal us. And also with all of our creation that's out there, we're energy and we're connected to everything. So with the positive thoughts, actions, and outcomes of this meeting, we pray that all of those doors will be open for us to do this good work in a good way with the upcoming meetings, Assembly of First Nations, AGA in September, that will there with our collective spirit and do the heart work that's needed for our children and our families. Cooksham, 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 Cooksham. Thank you, Chief Frost, and thank you, Deb, for all your chairing the meeting today, Cooksham. Thank you to all the commissioners.
Thank you, Elder Judy, for your prayers. Beautiful as always. I just want to, this is a formal conclusion with that prayer for the commission. I'd like to ask those that are online and those that continue, the commissioners that are online and those that are participating online, please don't depart. Don't feel like you need to leave. Just the formal part of the
We will
meeting.
be in touch with everyone with regards to the recordings. All of the information, transcripts, chat, etc., will be available to you on Teamwork. We'll also have this webinar on our YouTube channel, and we'll let you know when that goes up as well. One question that did come up in our questions was the resolutions that you're considering for the September meetings. If we could also possibly have those as well, we can put that on the website. And also the Our Children Our Way Society website is just a temporary holder for this information that will be on the National Children's Chiefs website as soon as it gets up and running. So yeah, just if you have any questions about administration or anything like that, do let me know. We will also add your names to our national database so that we can keep in touch on this matter and many other good matters there. Ichiko CM. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was a proposal by some folks online technically to stay online if you can. If you do want to converse and dialogue some more, feel free, and others will stay online for a few more minutes just to respond to any questions that you might have that we weren't able to get to in the formal part of the webinar. Okay, I'm not hearing any interest right now, so I'm just going to conclude and bid you all a beautiful day wherever you are in the country, and we will see you in September in Winnipeg. And for the commissioners, I will see you next week on our bi-weekly call. Thank you, everyone. Now I need to exit and I don't know how. What in the world?
This has been